All right, guys, this is the second of our two discussion videos for the week. This will cover pages 270 through 284 in the novel, which is part of your reading assignment for the week. So what we have here with Joseph's chapter, where we start on page 270, is that they're like having a party on the boat. Captain Schroeder has figured out a solution. The passengers are not going back to Germany. Instead, they're going to be dropped off in one of four countries. They're either going to get dropped off in Belgium, Holland, France, or England. So away from the Nazis is the important thing. But it might not be as positive as you thought. So on the bottom of page 271, it says that Joseph hoped that they would get England, that his family would be assigned England, because it was the farthest away from Nazi Germany, safe across the English Channel. But when everything was settled, he and his family were assigned France. They would be among the third group to disembark or to get off the ship, after the Jewish refugees going to Belgium and the Netherlands were delivered, but before the last group sailed for Great Britain. So here's some foreshadowing. This is an ELA term, it's kind of giving you a hint of what's to come. And this foreshadowing comes on page 272, and it'll be helpful for you in one of your activities today. As they're waiting in line to get off the ship, it says, somebody mentions, think of it. We traveled 10,000 miles on board the St. Louis, only to end up 300 miles from where we started, because Cuba's 10,000 miles away, or 5,000 there and back. And then Belgium's only 300 miles away from his hometown. So we had to travel that far just to get deposited in the neighboring country. This is the foreshadowing. The line got a laugh, but a sad one. Joseph was all too aware of the long shadow cast by Nazi Germany, and so was everyone else. Still, as long as the Nazis stayed in Germany, they would all be safe. Wouldn't they? So their safety is basically relying on the fact that the Nazis stay in Germany. And we know enough about world history to know that the Nazis don't stay in Germany. So we know that those Jewish people getting dropped off in countries neighboring Germany, like France, Belgium, Holland, they're going to be in danger, because we know that the Nazis take over almost all of Europe. So there is that little bit of foreshadowing there. And then let's transition to, I want to continue talking a little bit more. Sorry about Joseph. So Joseph, his mother, and his sister get dropped off in France. They get set up with a school and a job for his mother. It all seems well and good. Ruthie gets to go to kindergarten. Joseph doesn't speak any French, so even though he's 13, they put him back into first grade because he doesn't speak the language. And on page 274, it says, Joseph promised himself he would learn to speak French over the summer or die trying, so he's not put with the little kids. He never got that chance. 2 months later, Germany invaded Poland, touching off a new world war. 8 months after that, Germany invaded France, and Joseph and his mother and sister were on the run again. So they were running from the Nazis the first time by trying to go to Cuba, and now they're going to run again. And now with Isabel, on page 275, remember they have narrowly escaped the Coast Guard. That doesn't mean they're safe. Their boat that they're in is literally sinking. They could see the beach of Miami, Florida, and they are paddling for all they're worth. Their mother is in labor with her baby brother. And it says, Isabel's mother cried out, it's coming, it's coming. Isabel didn't know if she meant the baby or the Coast Guard ship or both. Paddle, Amara cried. Isabel paddled harder. She could see the shore, could see the beach umbrellas folded up for the night, still stuck in the sand, strings of lights, palm trees, music. I mean, she's literally close enough to see all of this. But then there's this connection here. Lido, her grandfather, starts talking on the bottom of page 275. It says, Lido froze. It's happening again, he said. What? What do you mean? Isabel asked, panting. When I was a young man, I was a policeman, Lido said, his eyes wild. There was a ship full of Jews from Europe, and we sent them back. I sent them back. Sent them back to die when we could so easily have taken them in. It was all politics, but they were people, real people. I met them. I knew them by name. I don't understand, Isabel said. What did her grandfather's story have to do with anything? Paddle, Isabel's father cried. The Coast Guard boat was almost on top of them. Don't you see? The Jewish people on the ship were seeking asylum or seeking safety, just like us. They needed a place to hide from Hitler, from the Nazis. Mañana, we told them. We'll let you in mañana. But we never did. Lito was crying now, distraught. We sent them back to Europe and Hitler and the Holocaust, back to their deaths. How many of them died because we turned them away, because I was just doing my job? Isabel didn't know what ship her grandfather was talking about, but she knew about the Holocaust from school. The millions of European Jews who had been murdered by the Nazis. And now her grandfather was saying that a ship full of Jewish refugees had come to Cuba when he was a young man, that he had helped to send them away. Mañana. Suddenly, Isabel understood why her grandfather had been whispering that word over and over again for days, why it haunted him. When would the Jews be let into Cuba? Mañana. When would their boat reach America? Mañana. Mañana had never come for the Jewish people on that ship, Isabel realized. Would mañana never come for Isabel and her family either? And then you'll have to keep reading on page 277 to figure out what happens to Lito at that point. But you're starting to see how all these connections come together. That Lito was that policeman who had saved Joseph's father when he jumped off the ship. He was that policeman who came and played with the kids on the boat and always told them, tomorrow you get to come to Cuba. And now it's like history repeating himself. Tomorrow we'll get to Miami. And then we get to Mahmoud on page 279. Remember, his family's been arrested by Hungarian police and they have them in a detention center or prison for refugees. And it seems that his family is broken. You know, on page 280, it starts off, it says, it scared Mahmoud. Of the 4 members of his family who were left, he was the only one who was not broken. His mother had snapped the moment she had handed her daughter away. Now she wandered the maze of mattresses and blankets in the detention center, asking people she'd already asked if they've seen or heard of a baby named Hannah. Mahmoud's brother Walid was broken too, but unlike his mother, he had been broken piece by piece over time, like someone snapping off little bites of chocolate bar until there was nothing left. He lay listless on a foam mattress, disinterested in the card games or soccer games the other children were playing. Whatever childish joy he had once possessed had been sucked out until there was nothing left. And now his father was dead inside too. Mahmoud fumed. Why were they even here? Why did the Hungarians care if they were just passing through? Why did they take him all the way to the Austrian border only to throw them in a detention center? It felt personal somehow. And then you'll have to keep reading this chapter, but he kind of runs through all the experiences that he has gone through since leaving home at the beginning of their journey. And he's talking to himself about this invisibility idea. You know, that's how he had survived for so long. And he's talking about, that being invisible had hurt them just as much as being visible it had. You know, there was no good answer, really. And it says, whether you were visible or invisible, it was all about how other people reacted to you. Good and bad things happened either way. If you were invisible, the bad people couldn't hurt you. This much was true. But the good people couldn't help you either. If you stayed invisible here, did everything you were supposed to, and never made waves, you would disappear from the eyes and minds of all the good people who could help you. It was better to be visible, to stand up, to stand out. Mahmoud watched as a door on a nearby wall opened, and a group of men and women in light blue caps and vests with the letters UN written on them came inside. Mahmoud knew that the UN was the United Nations, the same group of people that had been helping out at other refugee camps. And so then I'm going to make you continue reading on. But he has this stunt. He just gets up and walks right out of the detention center. He realizes there's this unguarded door and nobody seems to be paying attention. He just gets up and leaves. And everyone's kind of standing there staring at him like they can't believe at his audacity, at his daring to just say, enough of you, I'm out of here. On page 283, it says, hey, the guard cried. She saw him now, didn't she, when he's doing something he's not supposed to. The UN observers did too. Stop, no, not allowed, the soldier said in bad Arabic. She struggled to find the right words and said something in Hungarian that Mahmoud didn't understand. She started to raise her gun at him, and then she glanced up and saw the frowns on the faces of the UN people. Mahmoud stepped outside. The woman looked around at the other guards and called out to them, as if asking what to do. Mahmoud took another step and another. Soon he was away from the buildings, walking down the road. Walid ran through the door after him, followed by the rest of the children. The Hungarian guards yelled after them, but they didn't want anybody, or they didn't do anything to stop them. Mahmoud, Walid said, panting as he ran alongside his brother. His eyes were bright and alive for the first time Mahmoud could remember. Mahmoud, what are you doing? I'm not staying in that place and waiting for them to send me back to Serbia. Come on, we're walking to Austria. So Mahmoud really kind of goes through the pros and cons of his invisibility plan versus that visibility plan. And hopefully you can use this talk and use this section to help you out with your activity or your assignment that goes along with this. So good luck.